Well, hi everyone, and thanks for watching our video today. My name is Jonathan with Private College 529 Plan, and today I am happy to welcome two admissions professionals. I'll turn it over to them to introduce themselves in a second. But today we're going to talk about college readiness and what are some of the important considerations and factors that you should be thinking about as you are in late middle school and really kind of moving into high school. And so I will start by turning it over to Orlando.
Hi everyone, my name is Orlando Ramirez and I'm an assistant director of admission at DePauw. I am coming up to my 8th year of working at DePauw and I was a student here. I'm originally from New York City, but I moved to the Midwest in Greencastle, Indiana, where DePauw is located. And DePauw is a liberal arts school with a school of music, nationally ranked, and it's a fantastic school. It's completely residential, meaning that all of the students live on campus all 4 years. Creates a really great community among the students. We've had a rich, long tradition with fraternity and sorority life, which has been a big part of the campus culture. We've had a lot of students come out of DePauw who have gone into leadership roles in areas of business, so different business industries. Also, media is a big outcome for our students. Of course, the School of Music students have been doing well in all sorts of performance and administrative roles in the arts. And I think one of the key things about DePauw is that the students are they're a social bunch. They love to be interacting with each other. They're ambitious. And of course, with that Midwest charm, you do have that kind of personality where everybody's very kind to each other. That's something that you notice immediately on campus. So, yeah. Curtis, you want to take over?
That's awesome, Orlando. Hi, everyone. My name is Curtis Ferguson. My pronouns are he, his, and him. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions at the University of Southern California, so fight on. I've been here for 2 years. The University of Southern California, we're a large private research university that's located in the heart of Los Angeles. We have about 20,000 undergraduate students, so we're very large, but our average class size is only 26. We have over 170 different majors. We also pride ourselves on interdisciplinary learning. We do not limit any of the classes that students can take outside of their majors. Also, we pride ourselves on globalization. Each semester, we have about 2,000 students studying abroad. We also have a very vibrant campus life on our campus in terms of our athletic sports teams, Greek life, student organizations. And then you put that all together in the sunny weather of Los Angeles would not be better than that.
That's pretty good. Absolutely. Well, Orlando and Curtis, thank you so much for joining us and really kind of diving into a topic that we know is top of mind for many of our current account owners and parents, as well as certainly their students. So, college readiness, big topic. Obviously, so the goal here is to kind of break it down a little bit and talk about some of the more specific items related to this. And both of you, obviously, in your experiences in the admissions office and the work that you've done, both at at USC and DePauw and kind of other universities, and just kind of your education and what you know about everything related to college readiness. Let's start. When we talk about college readiness, what are some of the factors that students and families should be considering when they are really kind of transitioning from, let's call it that, that middle school into those high school years, to really kind of set them up on the right track to get to college? What are some of the big factors that they should be thinking about?
Well, so Jonathan, that's obviously a really big topic. And yeah. And honestly, for any family, whether you've had other siblings or other students go to college already, it can still be an intimidating process because you don't know where to start. And I think Curtis and I have broken down different things to think about into 3 major categories with an added fourth. Obviously, the first and foremost being academics. You know, what do you do to plan out your 4 years academically, as well as the extracurricular activities that the students are involved in, not only in their school, but also in their community. And then finally, the college search process itself, which is its own beast. Curtis, I know that we spoke about the differences between going to a private high school or a public high school. What are your thoughts on the differences?
I mean, I think that's a key question. And definitely, if you're a middle schooler, does it matter? First and foremost, I think it's a family decision. But in the eyes of a college, we do not penalize students or give points to students if they go to a public or a private school. And there's actually a lot of things that you should be aware of. I'm one of those people. I actually started my high school career at a private high school and then transitioned to a public high school because I liked that my public high school had more co-curricular activities. And also I wanted to take some classes that the private school that I was attending didn't offer. But one of the big things I would say to look at either going public school or private school are what resources are available to your child and how does your child take advantage of those resources. And I think there's one thing we should mention. If you notice, we're doing this webinar virtually. We have all been impacted because of COVID-19. And so we know that some of the playbooks, some of the rules, the advice have gone out the window because of COVID. But the one thing I want to assure you as a parent or somebody else watching this video is that colleges are going to be around. We are going to get through COVID, and education, if not told, are more important than ever. What we have found, even with this recession, is people that have college degrees have been able to maintain, keep their jobs, been able to move remotely. So we see that value. And there's a question about the experiences. Yeah, right now you can't study abroad. And some campuses are virtual, some campuses are in person, some campuses are hybrid. But the thing to keep in mind is that we are going to make it past this together. And once we do make it past this, I think the college experience is actually going to be much more exciting, much more vibrant, because we've seen how we can use technology in ways to supplement the learning in the student experience. But going back to the whole high school versus private school or not, I think it's a family decision. But for colleges, it's not added points if they go to a private school. It's not a negative if they go to a public school. But it's really about how does your child thrive, interact, and survive in that environment.
Well, and you started to talk about the resources, and for some families, that could be the actual courses that are offered by the school. A private school may seem like it would be a better choice because, of course, they're getting smaller classrooms, they're getting much more one-on-one interaction, and that's true. But I think what Curtis is talking about are the courses that are available, whether they're honors and AP courses. A private school may have a little bit more one-on-one interaction, but they may not be able to offer as many AP courses because they're just a smaller school. And so if you live in an area where the public schools are really well resourced and they have multiple AP courses, it might actually just be better to be there because the availability of those courses are there, right? And and that's just academically. Obviously, in terms of college readiness itself, the high school counselors are going to be playing a big factor in that as well. Curtis, I think you and I talked last night about how when choosing AP courses, there are a few things that go into it, obviously, right? Whether the student is ready to take on that rigor, and that's a conversation he needs to have with his or her family and the high school counselor. But what are your opinions about whether they should take on those AP courses, and then, of course, how many of those AP courses, right, and honors courses? Because I mean, we've seen it all over our experience that students try to take on way too much work, and they honestly don't always meet those expectations. They don't necessarily put themselves in the best foot because of that. What are your thoughts?
I mean, that that's a good question. And I remember when we were talking about this, is that, first, APs should not be looked at as the holy grail of rigor. That's the only way to define rigor. I mean, schools have defined rigor in so many different ways through like certain public schools having relationships with community colleges or colleges near their neighborhood where they can do dual enrollment courses, IB, honors. And also, I would say sometimes certain teachers are just harder than other teachers and produce that rigor. So what I always advise families is, you want to challenge yourself, right? But do you want to challenge yourself to the level of stress and headaches? No, absolutely. I always use myself as an example in the college person process. I challenged myself, but there were some courses that I was not going to do well in. And I always use the example, my dad is an engineer. My dad wanted me to take AP physics. And I was like, Dad, you do not want me to take AP physics. I took AP physics. I got a C in the class, and I honestly should have got an F. But because I turned in all my homework, the teacher was very nice and forgiving. So, you normally when you ask colleges, is it better to take regular classes and get all A's or take AP classes and get B's? The admissions counselor in me is going to say, we want you to take the AP classes and get all A's, of course. But in reality, we understand these things. And what we're looking at, and I think college, I always like to describe it as a table. And look at the legs being the different qualities of admission. So like one leg being your GPA, one leg being your rigor, one leg being your co-curricular activities, one leg being letters of recommendation, leg being your standardized test scores, one leg being your interview or some kind of other qualities or essays that schools required it. And if just like a table, no one leg is more important than another. While yes, we want students to be ready for college, the vast reality is most high schools are doing a great job preparing students to be ready for college. And those other legs are defining, definitely when you move into these realms of highly selective schools, did you earn the right to get a golden ticket to join our community? Yeah. And so when you're thinking about rigor, it's not just enough to say, I'm going to have a student take all AP classes or all AP classes, and then forget about their co-curricular activities, their essays, those characters that make them help identify as part of the community. Because just like a dining room table, if it only has one leg, it's not going to stand. And so when deciding as a family, I think it's a couple ways. And I think, Orlando, we talked about one is really getting to know your high school guidance counselor early on and developing what Orlando, we talked about, that 4-year plan, and talking about what does your curriculum look like in you. If you have the opportunity to take an AP your freshman year, great, maybe take an AP. But if you don't have that opportunity into your junior or senior year, we're not going to penalize you as a college. But we do want to see that rigor and honor and challenging yourself, but we also want to make sure you do well and also maintain good mental health balance. So sorry, that was long-winded, but hopefully I think that provides a thought process and a framework in order to do things.
Yeah, and I think it's great that I love the table example. That's the first time I've ever heard that. And I think it's very easy to digest, right? And so you think about the different pillars that kind of make up it's not just one piece, right? There's a lot that colleges are considering and looking at, and I would imagine, and both of you know this pretty well, but I think one of the anxieties that families have as they're going through this process is that if I'm not top in every area, then it's going to paint a disastrous picture, right? And it's like, I've got to do all the extracurricular activities. I've got to take all the AP classes. I've got to, get the top test scores. And so I think, kind of level setting that and knowing that it is a combination of factors, I think is really important to talk about.
Well, and Jonathan, I think regardless, Curtis and I spoke about how, obviously students are going to have strengths in certain areas academically, in particular. And so we asked ourselves, okay, regardless of the subjects, like what would be priorities for any student going through their high school career? And I think we both agreed on that reading and writing are essential. I mean, you're going to read and write a ton in college, right? And you're going to have to do it in a certain time frame as well. And so, regardless of whether your strengths are in the STEM fields or not, just make sure that you are working on those writing skills, because not only is that going to help you in your high school courses, but it's going to help you out in college. It's going to help you out in your career. And you never know where that career path goes. So it could be that you are doing research in a lab, or it could be that you're leading a team, or that you have to write grants in order to support your scientific research. So so that's something that's key. And then Curtis, I want you to take over on this one, because you definitely love talking about this, which is time management and note taking.
Definitely. I think those are two core skill sets if students can learn, understand in high school. You know, time management is going to be very, very important in college, definitely because you have that freedom of, you know, parents not waking, being your alarm clock. You're going to have these irregular schedules where maybe Monday you have a class at 9 a.m. You know, Tuesday and Thursdays, your first class might not be until noon. So how do you really develop that time management in order to complete assignments and to do the reading? The second piece I think that is often not talked about in high school, but I think is a very, very important skill, is how do you take notes? And really being able to develop a note-taking skill in high school. And it's going to last throughout the life. I always use that example. I learned the Cornell model of note-taking, and I remember in ninth grade social studies class, I hated it. I thought this is the worst thing ever. Why am I dividing my pages in thirds and 3/4 and going back and writing questions? And now I find myself in staff meetings doing Cornell notes and writing questions, follow-up thoughts. And I just found that was really helpful. And then the last thing we talk about, and definitely in college admissions, is that ability to ask for help. And being able to articulate when you have a problem, when you don't understand something. You might not be able to explain it, but you know that, like, okay, I'm not understanding this math problem. Let me stop and email my teacher. Or, you know, right now, let me go to office hours if your school offers that. Or during study hall, let me go to the academic support center. And being able to really be able to identify that strategy, that piece where you're not understanding something, and how do you go about getting help and resolving it. I think that will make any person successful and prepared for college.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, Jonathan.
No, I was just gonna say that's great, and I you know, the note taking, right? Like, especially that's again something that isn't really talked about a lot, right? And so I think just having some of those skills and understanding that.
Oh yeah, I could have used that. I mean, I was
Right,
definitely
right.
the
Well,
one.
well,
I was like, oh wait, write this.
Well, I
Gotta
mean,
write that.
yeah, right, exactly. So I think that's just such an interesting piece of information to take away for sure.
Yeah. Curtis, do you think we'd like to talk about standardized tests and test prep, and because that's going to be a big question for a lot of families?
The elephant in the room, right?
Right.
How about you mention it? No.
I mean, it's an interesting year to talk about it in general. So.
Yeah, so I'm going to propose this to you, Orlando. What are your thoughts on standardized tests?
Well, so standardized tests, obviously, they do measure something, right? They measure aptitude, they measure your ability to answer the questions and your general knowledge about a certain field. Whether you do well on the exam, though, depends on a lot of different factors. I mean, if your family didn't have the resources to be able to tutor for the exams, or if you didn't have the time because you might be working a job after school and helping your family provide, or helping provide for the family, you know, there are so many different factors that go into it. And here's the thing. Yes, if you do take the exams multiple times, obviously you're going to get acquainted with the style of the exam, with the questions, and that will help you. And both Curtis and I would agree that you should take them if you can, right? In terms of the resources to prepare for the exams, both the College Board and ACT have free tutorials on their websites. So whether the family chooses to use the free resources, or whether they want to purchase tutoring courses or books or things like that, obviously that'll be their decision. And but ultimately, we're going to establish another elephant in the room, is that we don't know the future of tests. Obviously, this year through the pandemic, we have seen many colleges and universities go test optional, some test blind. And so the value of the exam itself in the admission process may or may not be important, right? I think colleges who go test optional and test blind really do see the value of the grades earned by the student in the classrooms. It's a major indicator of what type of work they're doing in the class. Are they merely just handing in homework, or are they going above and beyond to actually grasp material and excel? So for a lot of colleges, that's really great indicator, right? You want a student in your college that is going to be doing the same type of work or more. Yeah, Kurt, I think I might have exhausted myself on that one, but
No, I think Orlando, you said a lot of good points. And I think, so parents, I'm going to say something, and this might shock you, but this is absolutely the truth. I have never read an application, loved the student, wanted to admit the student, and say, I cannot admit that student because their test score is not high enough.
same.
I have never, ever said that. I have never, ever worked in an institution where I haven't even been pressured to make those type of decisions. It's really that table. Test scores are one of many pieces of the application. And if people ask me, I did not do well on my standardized test scores either. I didn't do horrible, but I didn't do well. Like, I was not, and I think I'm pretty successful in life. I love myself. And it's not a measurement of who you are. Now, the one thing I will say to be careful, and this goes probably in that third piece where Orlando and I talked about, is that college search. Some colleges view test scores very differently than other schools. So it's important that when you're developing that college list, you look at, and I think that's a very fair question to ask an admissions counselor or admissions rep, is like, how are test scores used? At some schools, they might say test scores are just used maybe in order to place students in their freshman seminars or their writing courses. Some schools might use standardized test scores to help allocate merit scholarships. Some schools might use test scores in terms of making admissions decisions, and some schools might use it as a combination of all. So I just think it's important that you reach out to the schools and ask them, but I'll also say your child is not defined by that number. And there's so much more to them. And as an admissions counselor, this is my career, this is my life. I will always read your child's application. That is not the first thing I look at a standardized test score. Believe it or not, standardized, if you print out their application, it's page 19. You know this, Orlando. And so about time I get to your test score, I already have a lot of other things in mind about your student in terms of, I already read their essays, already looked at their co-curricular activities, already looked at their transcript. In many cases, I already looked at their letters of recommendation. So this test score just becomes another piece of this puzzle of how it's telling it. So I would say, don't stress about it. I know that Orlando mentioned, test prep. I think there's a lot of awesome free stuff out there that you can learn. I think, when SAT first came out, they was like, there's nothing you can do to study for this test. And then they're like, no, you can't study for this test. You can't prepare for this test. So there are ways to approach it, and you guys learn test strategies somewhat in high school and stuff. So take those, use those, start early if you take, there's free exams out there. Also, I would say is, don't just think about SATs and ECTs as the only piece that we're evaluating. A lot of colleges look at AP scores, they might look at IB scores. Some schools might require subject tests in terms of the SATs. So there's a lot of different ways that we can still learn about a student in terms of that standardized testing, more so than just simply the ACT or the SATs. And also some schools like New York have Regents exams. And so schools do look at those things. We look at a whole piece to put together that puzzle that not only can you be successful in our institution academically, but would you also be a contributing member of our community? And I think that a lot of times parents, when preparing, work so much on that first piece, like, are they going to be academically successful? In most schools, that's just an easy check. And not really focus on, are you going to be a contributing member of our community? You know, the big lesson about activities, at least for me, is that most colleges don't care about what activities you do. What we care about is why you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's that key piece into this. And I think there's a normal expectation reality. We'll see a lot of activities freshman year. And then as they move to 10th grade, 11th grade, the activities might dwindle. You know, you're no longer a part of this. And then you might see, like, senior year, they might not be involved in many activities because they have a part-time job that they really like. That's completely fine. And I know, Orlando, we talked a little bit about each year with your child, you should thinking about creating what we call like an activity. What did you call it? Activity resume?
Resume, yeah. I was trying to sound smart.
Yeah, but that's it's very helpful to have your child reflect on what clubs, what activities they were a part of, what contributions did those activities make for them, and are those activities that you're planning on doing in college? Just a helpful hint on the Common App, which, you know, most schools are a part of. It's an application process, or a single application that students can apply to over 800 schools, for parents who don't know. But on the activities part, it asks, do you plan to continue this in college? And one of the things I noticed just in applications is that a lot of students forget to complete that box or that piece. And that's what we're looking for. Yeah, because we're trying to find a community. We want people to be involved, like at least at USC, we're a residential campus, even though we're located in the heart of Los Angeles. I mean, if you just want to be in Santa Monica every day, okay, that might be noted, but we also want you to be on campus too and be a part of our clubs and activities. So how do you make that known? And I think if students just take that time, you know, in chunks and reflect on each year, it will really help them out starting to pick together that college application. But Orlando, I had a question for you, and I know we talked about this, and you were much more of a leader than I was in school. What does leadership mean for you in terms of these activities?
I mean, leadership is, there's certain things that you are passionate about. And there are going to be many moments in your class, in organizational meetings and things like that, where you're sitting in the room and you're thinking, I have a better idea than that, or I would really like to see this change, or and those are initial traits of leadership. And sometimes it does take a little bit of motivation, a little bit, whether that's internal or external, to get you to actually act upon that. And you know, I mean, we could spend an entire conversation about leadership because, you know, there are different types of leadership. And so you could be a committee member within an organization and still leading in a way that you created an event, right? You may not necessarily be the president of an organization, but you still had an impact. And so there's that. I mean, you can become the president of an organization. I mean, if you really want the level of experience, then you can get it. You can easily get it. And especially, and you know, this will matter at the type of high school that you attend. You know, you can always create new clubs and organizations. I mean, there are clubs for all sorts of things. If there's something that you don't see at your high school that you're really passionate about, then, you know, by all means start it. I love to see on an application when a student is a founder or co-founder of an organization, because it really does show initiative. It shows that the student is proactive. But Yeah, I mean, leadership is a big part of what I think builds character, and that's also something that's going to hopefully shine through in the application. Obviously, you have to express it, but something that Curtis mentioned that's not related to leadership, that it struck something is I think it would be a good idea that at the end of each semester, the student takes some time to reflect on that semester. And it's tied into this activities resume as well, because not only do you need to know and have a really good kind of map of what you accomplished, what you did, but at the same time, you have to see how it changed you. And these are important, if anything, for the practical reason of helping you out when it comes to that personal statement in your application, right? I mean, a lot of times students are like, man, what have I done these past 4 years? Or who am I, right? Or how did I actually overcome an obstacle? Well, if you do this on a semester basis, then it's easy for you to go back to it and say, hey, that was a major part of my growth. And to be quite honest, it'll help your meetings that you have with your high school counselor as well. So, and they would appreciate that.
One thing I would suggest is do not neglect the summer. The summer could be an awesome opportunity for your child to develop professionally, academic interests. I'm not saying that they need to go to summer at such and such colleges, but that can be a time to do community service, do activities. As an admissions counselor, when we're reading the app, we're really trying to put together that timeline of what your child did throughout that whole high school career, and summers are a part of that high school career.
And obviously some students may have to take on a summer job to help provide for the family, and that's perfectly fine. Obviously, that shows a lot of different character traits in and of itself. But at the same time, that's only a certain amount of hours throughout the day. In the evenings, if you want to decompress and read, right? Like that's a perfect activity. Like learn to read as much as you can. Or even like Curtis mentioned about helping in your community. There's so many different ways. It doesn't have to be that you're leading a march through your city, right? Like it could be that you're helping the elderly that are just down the street. Start creating that college list. You want to make sure that you're understanding what it is that you're looking for in a school, right? Whether you want to be in a major city where you don't mind being in a rural area, whether you want to be on campus all 4 years, or whether you want to live in the surrounding community. Things like a liberal arts education versus a technical school where you're diving deep into one specific subject like engineering.
I would say also don't stress. And I know that's easy to say, but to do, but just know there's over 4,000 colleges in the United States, and less than 100 colleges still reject more students than they admit. So there is a college for everyone out there. And I think that that's a key thing. And so, yes, he might be hyper-focused on a certain, but just know that your child will get into a college. They will be successful. They will have a great experience in college. So trust the system in the process. And I hope you saw all this in this, webinar, is that we as admissions counselors, we are human beings. We are people. It is okay to reach out to us. We love it. I would rather have a student who has a question reach out to me and get that question answered than to do something doubtful and stress out because they don't know.
Or miss out on the opportunity.
Yeah. So at any school, it might be a little hard to find who the admissions counselor. Some schools make it difficult than others, but you can always email. Almost every school has admissions.theirinstitutionname.edu, and just like, I have a question, and they will find somebody to reply and to follow up, because we are here to support you. And I think that what a lot of people don't understand, this is a relationship at definitely almost every school. We want your child to be a match for us. It's like dating, but we also want to be a match for your child. And for me, let's say, they're not offering admissions to USC. I still want your child to go to college, to go to a place that's successful and that's a good, and I always hate using that word fit, but that's a good match for them, that a place where they can thrive and be successful. So just know that, parents, we are human beings. You can reach out to us too as parents. I would say usually senior year, probably a lot of questions we probably want your child to reach out to, or it's completely okay to have your child send the email and copy them in it. Just make sure that they did it. I noticed that a lot. But don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, because I understand that this college process is daunting, overwhelming, tedious, and you want the best for your child, just like Orlando wants the best for his niece. I want the best for my cousins and stuff like that. And so we're all in this together, and you are not alone.
I was just writing things down as both of you were going through, talking about expectations with realities. You talked about so many tactical things you can do. Also just the importance of self-reflection and taking time throughout high school. And obviously self-reflection is important in your whole life, but certainly, when thinking about this process, and then kind of breaking down the step-by-step pieces that you could do 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So I think, this is hugely helpful for folks to hear, and to, again, you said it can be a stressful process. And so I think that hopefully as we start to talk about these things and dispel and really get to the root of what you should be focusing on, it might still be stressful, but maybe it can be a little less stressful. So thank you both for your time and expertise. It's been truly, truly helpful.